Hi everyone, my name is Kathleen. I'm one of the psychological wellbeing practitioners at Harrow Talking Therapies, and we specialise in providing support for people who are experiencing anxiety, depression, panic and stress, so a whole plethora of difficulties. Now, in today's session, we're going to be talking to you a little bit about sleep and the importance of sleep. Sleep plays a really vital part in our body and our mind's healing process. And if we don't get a healthy and sufficient amount of sleep and a good quality of sleep, we will begin to notice it in day-to-day life. We'll feel sort of physically tired and mentally very tired as well. Now, as a result of that, we might notice just generally not being able to engage in day-to-day activities, things that probably normally would be quite simple and easy for us. And our motivation levels tend to be quite a lot lower. As a result of this, we end up at risk of putting pressure on ourselves to perform when we won't necessarily have the energy to do so. And again, this leads to us feeling more stressed, more anxious, and also more low. So in today's session, we have Zena and Lynn from the Centre for ADHD and Autism Support, who are going to talk to you a little bit more about sleep, the importance of sleep, good quality sleep, and strategies for managing sleep as well. So I'm going to hand over to them.
Thanks, Kathleen, for that introduction, and thanks for inviting us to join you to present on sleep today. So my name's Lynn, and I manage the autism services at the Centre for ADHD and Autism Support. We're a local charity based in Eastcote, and we provide support for young people and adults with a diagnosis of ADHD and autism, their families, and the wider community through different training programmes. Within that, I'm also a trained practitioner, as is my colleague Zena, who will introduce herself now.
Thanks, Lynn. I'm Zena. I'm one of the family support workers at the Centre for ADHD and Autism. And one part of my role is offering sleep support to families who've got young people with ADHD or autism. And we all know how difficult sleep can be. And that's probably why you're watching us right now. Sleep is hard for us, let alone our families who have neurodiversity within them. Something we wanted to look at or start with was sleep hygiene. We think about cleanliness with our teeth, our hair, our bodies, but do we think about how we're sleeping? Do we think about, are we getting a good full night's sleep? Have we got a good routine before bedtime or not? We're currently in a world which is very different. COVID has hit us, and it's raised huge amounts of stress and anxiety. And that isn't only for our young people with ADHD and autism, but it's for all of us who are working with young people. And this stress and anxiety has had a massive impact on how we sleep, how we live, our work-life balance. That's today. But within all of this, all of you will have other stresses that are already in your worlds, that already hit you in different ways. And do they impact your sleep? How do they impact our sleep? We think things just affect us through the day, but actually nighttime is a huge time of connection and fixing and repairing. And this is what's happening in our body through the night. We're going to go on to that next. So let's have a think about this. We need sleep for some obvious reasons: to be mentally alert, happy, for our concentration to be better. When we're working, when that stress and anxiety kicks in, our head is all over the place, and without sleep, we can't think clearly. Sleep isn't a time where we just flat out and nothing happens in our bodies. Actually, if you imagine your head is like a busy office, and that every thought you have during the day generates a piece of paper in that office. During the course of a day, we might have many thoughts about everything and anything. Some things more important than others. We might have thoughts about our mortgage needs to be paid by tomorrow. What socks am I going to wear? What dress shall I put on today? Oh, what time is my gym class? And then actually I've got a deadline for a job application. While we're sleeping, our hippocampus, that part of our brain, separates all of those bits of paper out, and we learn to prioritize the ones which are important and throw away the ones which are not important. So we can wake up in the morning and think, right, I know what I need to do. You've had a good fresh sleep and your hippocampus, your office, has been able to work really well organising all of those thoughts. However, if we're not getting the sleep we need, our office is going to be super messy. We're going to wake up with this jumble of thoughts going on inside, not knowing what comes first and what comes last. So actually, we need sleep for organisation and processing everything that's happened to us through the week and through our day. It's not just a time where the brain switches off. Actually, it's a really active process, and it's absolutely essential for survival. It helps our bodies, it helps our immune systems, it releases growth hormones when we sleep. And of course, the repairing of our body happens at night too. And we all want that. We all want to be actively happier and functioning better in our days. Next slide.
So how does sleep work? We need to think about the factors that influence sleep. So sleep is largely controlled by our sleep pressure or drive and our circadian rhythm. This is our body clock, and it regulates all of our biological and physiological processes. Interestingly, our body clock doesn't actually reflect a 24-hour day, it's 24 hours and 11 minutes, which isn't much in a day, but it all adds up over a month. In an ideal situation, the circadian rhythm will naturally rise in the early morning, promoting wakefulness and alertness, and it will reach a peak in the evening. With the onset of darkness, our circadian rhythm drops to its lowest level and helps us to maintain sleep. Unfortunately, for those of us who are night owls, we're always going to be fighting against our natural body clock. Sleep pressure is what helps us feel sleepy. So it builds up during the day, and after a waking period of around 15 hours, the pressure to sleep becomes greater and greater. We become tired. Napping reduces this sleep pressure, and that's why it's generally not a good idea if you're having issues with sleep. We also need to think about arousal, so anxiety, worry, and anger. Scientists have found a direct link between anxiety and sleep. So when you're anxious, your heart rate goes up and your mind races, which causes our brains to become alert. Once our brain is stimulated in this way, other worries are activated, and that makes sleep even harder to achieve. And as this pattern sets in, sleep in itself becomes a thing of anxiety. So we also need to consider our sleep cycles when we're looking at sleep. There are two basic types of sleep. We've got rapid eye movement, or REM, which is dream sleep, and non-REM sleep, which has got 3 different stages. And we cycle through all of these stages several times during a typical night. So a full sleep cycle is 60 to 90 minutes. But although we all reach waking or wakefulness at several points during the night, we generally don't remember waking. We're not actually really designed to sleep for 8 hours straight. We didn't always have nice houses and comfy beds to sleep in, so our early ancestors would actually wake many times during the night, just in terms of keeping themselves safe. So we've got our N1 non-REM sleep. And this is the changeover from wakefulness to sleep. So during this short period of light sleep, our heartbeat and breathing slows down, our eye movements slow, and our muscles relax. There might be occasional twitches. Your brain waves begin to slow, but you're somewhat alert and can be easily woken. So I don't know if you've ever done that thing where you're lying in bed and you feel like you're asleep and you trip over a pavement and wake up. Or you're sitting watching TV and you're nodding off and you wake up. That's stage 1 sleep. And then we've got N2, which is our stage 2 non-REM sleep. This is a period of light sleep before we enter deeper sleep. So our heartbeat and our breathing continue to slow, our muscles relax even further. Our body temperature drops at this point and our eye movements stop. Our brain activity slows, but it's marked by brief bursts of electrical activity. So we spend more time in stage 2 sleep than in any other sleep stage. So this is where you think that it's after Christmas lunch and watching TV, you think your dad's sleeping, you change the channel, and he's like, oi, I was watching that. Or you're trying to put your child to sleep and you're laying in bed beside them, you're convinced that they're sound asleep, and you move to get up and they're all like, where are you going? So that's our stage 2 sleep. From that, we move into stage 3, which is our deep sleep. And this is what we need to feel refreshed in the morning. It occurs in longer periods during the first half of the night. So our heartbeat and breathing slow to their lowest levels, our muscles are relaxed, and it's usually difficult to waken somebody at this point. If we do wake at this point, we're likely to be really groggy and disorientated. So this is the point that our body repairs its muscles and tissues, it stimulates growth and development, boosts our immune function, and builds our energy for the next day. So finally, we've got our REM sleep. This tends to occur about 90 minutes after first falling asleep and can last for around an hour. During this final phase of sleep, our brain becomes more active, so this is actually when we dream. Our eyes will move rapidly from side to side, though our eyes are closed. Our heart rate and blood pressure will increase, and our breathing will become fast, irregular, and shallow. So REM sleep plays a really important part in learning and in memory function, because this is when our brain consolidates and processes the information from the day before, so it can be stored in our long-term memory. A good night's sleep will consist of 5 or 6 sleep cycles, but as we age, we spend less of our time in REM or dream sleep.
So, why are we not sleeping? What things are going on for us in our lives? How are we going to bed? Are we having a cup of coffee? Are we drinking some alcohol, a glass of wine perhaps, before we have a sleep? Are we eating all the junk food that I love to eat at night? You get the TV on, you snuggle up, and you get your bowl of crisps, your chocolate, so you've got your caffeine, your Coke, and you eat away. Is that going to help with our sleep? Probably not. Sometimes it's about looking at the more obvious things, like what are we eating, what are we drinking before we go to sleep? Do we need to go to the toilet? Do we just think, I'm too tired, I'm going to hold it, and wake up through the night? Or is it something a bit deeper? Let's look at our 5 senses. We've got our hearing, we've got our sight, we've got our smell, we've got touch. All of those senses. Sorry, Lynn, I couldn't remember my senses. What? Can we pause? So, why aren't we getting sleep? Sometimes it's the more obvious things. We need the toilet, we are too full, we're too thirsty, we might be in pain, there might be something niggling us and we're not looking at it. We're not having a self-check-in with ourselves. Or it could be something a bit different. Looking at your senses, your sight, your sound, your smell, your touch, your taste. What are we seeing around us when we fall asleep? Have we got the light on outside our bedroom and then it goes off when our partner comes up to bed? Or is there a train that goes past at midnight every day or up until midnight, but when we wake up, it's silent again? What duvet are we using? Are we comfortable? Is it cozy? The night where we don't sleep well, is it a different duvet? Have we used a different washing up powder? Have we cooked something that we don't like the smell of and we're smelling this as we're going to sleep? They sound like really simple things, but we really need to break it down and look at those in separate ways to figure out, are they the same when we wake up during the night? Or are they different? Has the sound stopped? Has the smell stopped? All of those things we need to keep in mind. For those of us ladies in the crowd, hormonal fluctuations in the year before menopause can cause disturbed sleep. Low progesterone levels can cause sleeplessness, and an overactive thyroid can cause sleep problems too. It's really worth going to the GP and talking about this if you're menopausal or perimenopausal. Get your hormone levels checked and don't settle for a prescription of sleeping pills. They're trying not to do it right now. They're trying to get you to look at how you sleep. This does happen for our young people, but some doctors will look at the easy option and give you some sleeping pills. It's not a fix. And we're not saying you don't need those sleeping pills, but we're just saying work through that healthy routine. What are you doing at night? What might be stopping you from sleep? Of course, as we mentioned at the start, your anxieties, your worries, what are you going to bed with? Are you releasing them, or are you getting into bed still worrying, still thinking, just about falling asleep and waking up in the middle of the night, starting those thoughts all over again? These are really simple things, but do we all do them? Are we aware of them? Let's try and sort it out. And we're all under stress and pressure at the moment. As we said earlier, COVID is here and it's giving us all stressful lifestyles. Is that work-life balance balanced? Or are we pulling one way or the other? Are we fighting between the both? A stressful lifestyle can definitely keep the cortisol levels high and cause sleeplessness. Next slide. Another thing to think about when we're going to sleep are sleep associations. Sleep associations are things that we use, and they can be positive, they can be negative, but they're the things we use to fall asleep. And they can be as simple as, what side do we sleep on? So do we sleep on our right side, on our left side? What side of the bed do we sleep on? Do we sleep with a lamp on or off? Has it got a timer on it? And does it go off in the middle of the night? Do we sleep with the radio on? I know for myself, before I was married, I slept with the radio on. I didn't like being alone in the bedroom, and the radio was always on ever so quietly, but I loved the sound. Getting married and having a husband who wants pin drop silence, it took me months to adjust myself to be able to fall asleep in that silence. And sometimes headphones don't work the same way, because when you put headphones into your ear with music, you're suddenly shut off from the world around. You don't hear anything else happening, and that's also scary. So it's thinking about the things as adults we use to fall asleep. Is there a quilt that we like? Is there a furry cover that we have? A certain pillow that we use? I've spoken to so many people who have a mattress of sorts that they need to sleep. So when you go to a hotel or you're staying the night with friends, it's not the same, because you haven't got the same sleep associations that you might have in your own houses, in your own rooms. And these are fine if they're the same all through the night. But if your sleep association is something that switches off automatically through the night or changes as you fall asleep. Coming back to what Lynn was saying earlier, where we have wakeful moments through the night. And if at that point when you're wakeful, the sleep association isn't there anymore, that could be the point when you wake up. That could be the point when you get out of bed and you think, I just can't sleep anymore. The lucky thing for us as adults is sleeping on one side. Normally we naturally put ourselves back on that side when we wake up and we're wakeful and fall back to sleep again. But it's when you're unable to do those things. So really be mindful of your sleep associations and think about it. If you're in a couple, if you've got children, how do they change through the night? Simple things can make all the difference with sleep. Next slide.
So this slide is really just to make you think about how stress impacts on you personally. How does it affect your thinking? How does it affect your emotional states? What about physically or your behaviour? It's a vicious cycle. The more anxious you are, the less likely you are to sleep. The less you sleep, the more anxious you become. But if we can identify what stress looks for us, we can start to identify ways of reducing stress before bed. And I know that some of the other workshops are going to cover stress and anxiety. What stress does do, though, is lead to insomnia. So that might be difficulty falling asleep. It might be waking up through the night, waking up too early in the morning. It will generally lead to us being tired, irritable, and having trouble concentrating during the day. So when we're looking at insomnia, we need to consider the impact of melatonin. So melatonin responds to light and dark. Our optic nerves link to our pineal gland, which produces melatonin. So light has a profound effect on sleep. Exposure to light early in the day stimulates our body and mind. It encourages us to feel awake, alert, and increases energy. Light exposure at night also stimulates alertness, and that can pose serious problems for refreshing sleep. Insufficient darkness throughout the night can lead to frequent and prolonged wakenings. When we're talking about light, we're actually talking about lux, which is illumination. And lux is higher outside, so being inside all the time is really not good for productive sleep. And just to give you a little bit of perspective, on a sunny summer day, your environment might be in the range of 150,000 lux. On a cloudy winter day, when the sun's farther from us and maybe it's cloudy, typical lux measurement might be as low as 1,000. And this is where things like a SAD or a daylight lamp can come in useful. We're just going to briefly touch on sleep disorders. Sometimes sleep difficulties will have a medical basis. In that case, it is best to seek advice from your GP. We've got things like restless leg syndrome. I get restless legs and it's a horrible, horrible thing. It feels like almost like there's something crawling under your skin. It makes it really hard to get to sleep because you feel like you've got to move to get rid of the sensation. That can actually be linked to low iron. So things like magnesium, whether it's a tablet or a spray, can help. We've got rhythmic movement disorder. That's something that tends to be more common in children and young people, things like rocking and head banging. And then we need to think about parasomnias. So there are nightmares, night terrors, and sleepwalking. So nightmares tend to happen in our REM or dream sleep, which is the second part of the night, and we're probably going to remember those. Night terrors, we tend to associate with children, but again, they can still happen within adulthood. They tend to happen in the first part of the night, and although distressing for other people to watch, we're unlikely to remember them. Sleepwalking also happens in our non-REM sleep. It's not dangerous to wake somebody from sleepwalking, but it is better in terms of their sleep if you don't, as long as they're safe. And then lastly, we've got sleep apnea. So that's where you've got pauses in your breathing during sleep. So you might have a partner that snores and then all of a sudden they stop and you wake up because you think, are they going to breathe? And then they take a big gasp of air. That's sleep apnea. It can lead to a fall in oxygen and sleep disturbances. So it's always worth checking that out with your GP because it may mean that you need something like a CPAP machine, which will help give you oxygen through the night.
So we're going to have a little think about sleep deprivation and the impact of sleep deprivation. In some countries, sleep deprivation is used as a form of torture, and that happens for a reason. We don't even realize what happens to us, what happens to our bodies when we don't get enough sleep. There is a real lack of support, and people feel that they might outgrow sleep issues, but it rarely happens. So if we actually think back to our sleep habits, these could be happening for years and years, decades for some of us. We sleep a certain way and our sleep might be disturbed all the time and we don't even think about it. And obviously, as we get older, our body can't cope with the changes. So many people will say, when I was young, I could club all night, I could party, I'd be up with family and friends, I'd be fine in the morning on a couple of hours sleep. However, as we get older, we're working, we have more stressful lives, it doesn't happen anymore. We think we can cope, but we need a weekend of recovery to catch up on that sleep. So we really need to think about what happens when we're not getting enough sleep. Why are we arguing more suddenly? Why are we snapping at work? Why are we snapping at our children the minute they've woken up? Why are we feeling our emotions in such a strong way and thinking we just can't cope for another moment? And that can be the result of not having enough sleep. We talked earlier about hair, health, our bodies, our teeth. Without enough sleep, these don't get the time to repair. We can wake up with bad skin, bags under our eyes, get spotty, Our hair cannot grow and be as strong, all because we're not getting the sleep and the rest we need. There's points where we think, I'm depressed, my relationship is breaking down, work difficulties just throw it out at us. And all of this, again, can stem from sleep. Just how a plant needs sun and water and oxygen to grow, we need sleep. We need sleep for our mental health, our physical health, our emotional health. Every part of us needs sleep. People can sometimes be struggling with weight issues and anxiety issues, and it's a bit of a vicious circle, like Lynn talked about in an earlier slide. That anxiety can kick in because of sleep, but it goes round and round when you're not fixing the sleep. You think you're coping, and I also speak to people who say, 6 hours has always done me. I'm fine with 5. I function just fine. How are you actually functioning? Yes, you're communicating. Yes, you're working. You're getting on with your life and doing the things you need to do. How well are you actually doing them? And can you see a difference? Can you see a difference on the days where you don't get enough sleep to actually having a full 8 hours sleep, waking up feeling fully rested and ready to take it on, ready to manage that conflict if it happens, ready to manage your emotions? Sleep debt can really have a serious damaging effect on our mental health, and a good night's sleep is vital. It's restorative. It plays a significant role in the healing that we need. It plays a role in our immune system and boosts us to stay well and get better if we're unwell. It boosts our cardiovascular system, and the rest allows other organs to be restored. So let's think about having more than 6 hours sleep, because there is research that shows people who have less than 6 hours sleep a night are significantly at increased risk of a stroke and heart disease. Next slide. So Lynn mentioned earlier about anxiety and how that impacts our sleep. How can we reduce our anxieties and help our sleep? There's lots of ideas here. We've got a few up on this slide, and I'm not going to go on for too long on this one, but we just need to figure out firstly, what are we worried about? What is making us anxious? Is it the thoughts going on in our head? What are those thoughts and what are we doing with them? Are we leaving them lying around all through the day, all through the night? Are we documenting them? Are we journaling them? Are we talking to a friend or our partner before we go to sleep so they're off our head and we've got a way of managing them in the morning? And what helps with those anxieties? So for some of us, it can be simple things like aromatherapy, meditation, mindfulness. What they do suggest, and research again shows, is a warm bath half an hour before bedtime helps you fall asleep. But you've got that 30-minute window to fall asleep. So the warm bath makes your body warm, and as the temperature comes down in your body becomes sleep ready. If you can't have a bath at bedtime or a warm shower, you can always try putting your pajamas on the radiator and see if that makes a difference. Something we haven't talked about is room temperature, and that isn't something that necessarily helps with anxiety, but just making sure our rooms are not too hot, they're not too cold. So they suggest 16 to 18 degrees. And I know for a fact that when it's winter, I go to bed in a room that's probably 25 degrees and struggle to get to sleep and then wake up hot, tossing and turning. What is the temperature like in our room? Are we getting rid of all that worry and stress? Are we journaling? So like I said earlier, we can write it out, we can talk it out. We can go to sleep with negative thoughts in our head. I haven't got enough money to pay the mortgage. Something simple like saying out loud, I will find a way to pay the mortgage this month. That way you're keeping the negative thought inside your head. You're not saying it out loud, but actually you're saying the positive thing out loud and you're making it doable. For some of us, we might use religion, spirituality, whether we put prayers on, we put a meditation on, there's something relaxing we listen to that comforts us at bedtime. It's really thinking about the routine. What are we doing? What's happened in our day? Because in response to acute stress, our body produces adrenaline, and this helps us with the fight or flight response. We need to be able to have that in the morning when we wake up. So really thinking about not going to bed with those worries, those anxieties. What ways are going to relax you through the night? And there's many others. I'm sure you've all got a list of your own. Think about them. Think about putting them into your bedtime routine. Next slide. So looking at what are we eating and drinking before bedtime? Something to make sure you're not having before bedtime is caffeine. And caffeine can be found in many things. Hot chocolate, tea, they all have caffeine. When I think of caffeine, I know the instant thought that comes to my head is coffee, but we really need to look at ingredients of things we're having to make sure there's no caffeine in them. And for some of you, that might not make a difference, but for others, it will. I know for my own partner, he will stop drinking coffee at 12 o'clock in the afternoon because he insists that he cannot sleep if he's had it beyond that time. So have a think about, when are you having your caffeine? What about sugar? And what is sugar in? It's in squashes, it's hidden in yogurts, it's hidden in so many foods. And this can also cause the sleeplessness. Something that is an irritant to the bladder is blackcurrant. Are we having a blackcurrant juice or a Ribena before bedtime? So there's lots of things that we should be thinking about not drinking or eating before sleep. And we've got other lists, and I'm sure you can find things online. We will have a website at the end that you can access for sleep support. So some of the foods that can aid sleep, and these are melatonin-rich foods, can be almonds. They've got magnesium, which helps sleep and muscle relaxation. Bananas also contain magnesium and potassium, and I always find this word a bit tricky to say, but tryptophan. So also contains sugar. So don't go over the top. As I said earlier, sugar is hidden in everything. Dairy is always a good option before bedtime, but not dairy with chocolate in it or dairy with some sort of sweetener. Just dairy, milk, yogurt, cheese, all of these things can also help sleep and have the calcium effect, which stops stress. It can actually reduce stress. There's oatmeals, they're porridge oats, and they contain calcium, magnesium, phosphorus, silicone, and potassium. Cherries are also a good food before sleep. Cereal's great as long as it's not those delicious kids sugar-coated ones, and turkey and fish as well. So there's many foods which aid sleep. We just need to have a think about, what are we drinking, what are we eating, and actually what time are we eating and drinking. I think the suggestion is 2 hours. Stop drinking and eating 2 hours before bedtime. So making sure that we're just following through. And these are for people who are struggling with sleep. So obviously if sleep's fine, you won't need to worry. Otherwise, keep these things in mind. Next slide. So coming to our sleep environments, where are we falling asleep? How many of us fall asleep on the sofa in front of the TV, wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning and drag ourselves up to our bedrooms and then complain we're not getting enough sleep? Actually, we need to think about our sleep environments. We need to have a look at our bedrooms. So we've got a slide up here. And when I instantly looked at these slides, I thought, oh, very calm bedrooms, lovely bedrooms. But actually, if you look at the first slide, there's a lot of light coming into that room. It's quite a bright room. And coming back to what Lynn said earlier around light and sleep, that's not going to help us. If we look at the second one, again, if we observe carefully, you'll see an iPad in that room. So there is technology in that room. Not a good idea at bedtime. However, how many of us do that? I know I'm guilty. My phone is under my pillow. And when I wake up in the middle of the night, the phone comes out and suddenly I find myself internet shopping or Google searching the news in the middle of the night with my phone on bright. So it's not helpful. However, the third bedroom, that is calm. There's no technology, there's dim lighting, there's not distractions on the wall, and it's calming colours. So what we do want to try and avoid is bright colours. Red colours, for example, are quite stimulating. So we need to think about what colours are in our bedroom. If we have got bedrooms which are bright, what can we do to bring it down? You know, can we turn the light off completely and have it pitch black at night? If we are thinking about decorating, muted and pastel colours are great. They're a lot more calming. Also, what are we using our bedrooms for? Now, again, we're in a time where people are working from home and bedrooms might be the only place you can work. If that's the case, separate it out at night time. Cover up your computer screens, get rid of your monitors if you can, hide the table, hide the clutter that you've got, which is work related. So your bedroom turns into an actual bedroom where you sleep or have sex at night. And that's pretty much all you do in your bedroom. Avoid TVs, avoid phones. Some of us have TVs in our bedroom, but having them on to the last second right before we go to sleep, not a good idea. Again, at least an hour, if not 2 hours before bedtime, switch off all technology. And the world we live in today, technology is going on constantly. How many of you, I've got a lot of teacher friends at the moment who are working all the time at home. Their phones are on, their emails are on. People are contacting you at odd hours. You'll get the beeps, the notifications through the night of people sending random emails at midnight. A work email comes in because we're working in such a different way. We need to avoid that. We need to switch off. We need to have a cleanse of all technology and just keep the rooms as calm as we can. Something else that might help for some of you at night is having calming smells around. I've invested in a deep sleep candle, which I put on just before bedtime and I blow it out as I'm going to bed. And it seems to be making a difference, actually, a nice calming smell. There are various things you can use, such as potpourri, essential oils. There's the pillow sprays you can get as well. Lavender is a scent that they associate with sleep and bedtime. However, don't use these during pregnancy or in your children's rooms. I think there are some that are for children specifically, but avoid using them in children's rooms just around safety, unless you definitely know they're made for children. So think about your room. And the last thing, which is an obvious thing, is your room tidy? How much clutter is around? There might be clutter in lives generally. Your minds are cluttered. There's so much to think about. You want your bedroom cleared up. Can you just tidy up the floor, the clothes, the shoes, the toys your kids might have left in there? Put them all away so you've got a tidy, clear space to go to sleep. A colleague recently has had a room built, a brand new room, and her house is quite busy. And she said, do you know, this room's going to be brilliant. It's my room for sleep and I'm going to work up there. But actually, she said to me the other day, I'm not working in my bedroom. It's too peaceful. It's too calm. Work is not allowed up there. It's not invading that space. So think about those things. Thanks. Next slide. Something to consider is a sleep diary. It's something we use at work with our families and their youngsters, but actually if you were to go and see your GP, they would ask you to do the same thing. They'd ask you to complete a sleep diary. Now we suggest 2 weeks of a sleep diary. Within that, sometimes you know what's happening all through your night, but actually having that diary with timings in it, what time are you going to bed? What time are you falling asleep? Again, as Lynn said earlier, the body clock doesn't run on a 24-hour cycle. Night owls will always be fighting against their body clock. And as adults, we're lucky enough where we can create our own routines. This is not going to happen overnight. It doesn't happen within a week, especially if you've had sleep habits which you've followed through for decades. It's not going to change rapidly. Keeping a diary for 2 weeks and just figuring out where those changes are happening. Where are you waking up? And actually, are you getting into bed too early? Are you wakeful when you're in bed? And if you are, there is the 20-minute rule, where if you're in bed for 20 minutes and you're not asleep, get out of bed, do something. You know, it might not be something distracting, something calming, something calm like, you know, for young people, we suggest anything that is hand-eye related. So it might be doing some colouring or just writing something down on a paper, something where you can just be calm and then get back into bed when you feel sleepy. So we need to think about what's going on in our nights, not just our days, but our nights as well, as a whole, as to what's impacting our sleep. And once you've done that 2-week diary and you look at it yourselves, sometimes you'll get a light bulb moment and think, this is where the problem lies. So go to bed when you're sleepy, not when you feel awake. And if you wake up feeling quite awake at night, don't start fidgeting on phones and things. Think about, am I going to fall asleep? 20 minutes, you're not asleep. Get out of bed and do something. Do something to get yourself sleepy and ready for sleep again. Next slide. Right, so we've talked about this through all of the slides today, and it's just having those really good sleep habits. And we've got a list of them. I'll let you go through these on your own. But coming back to when we were children, we all might have had, some of us might have and or not have, but a sleep routine, a clear visual sleep routine. And this is what we suggest to youngsters nowadays, having something visual and clear so they know what's happening and when it's happening. I think the change with adults is there's loads of apps on our phones now or our watches where we can figure out how much sleep we're getting, you know, when we're falling asleep. Are we having enough sleep? Are we wakeful? When are we wakeful in the night? Having something just to remind you that it's sleep time now. Because I know for me, I can easily go on and on and on and forget that I need to go to sleep. And I'll get addicted to a series on Netflix and think, I'll just watch 6 more episodes, 2 o'clock in the morning. And we're all guilty of it. So a little timer on our phone just to say, right, 9 o'clock, time to start getting ready. Time to start bringing everything down, dimming those lights, quietening our voices, getting ready, having the bath, changing into our pajamas, making sure that we're following those rules ourselves so we can sleep well. And something we haven't mentioned yet is on weekends, how many of us love to have a lie-in? We haven't had good sleep through the week and we think, do you know what, I'm just going to lie in. I'll just stay in bed until 12 today. Actually, when we're struggling with sleep already, it's not a good idea to start having those weekend lie-ins. We need to keep our timings consistent for the time being. So we wake up at the same time, we go to bed at the same time. We do it all through the week and weekends. How many of us wake up at 6 in the morning and we lie in bed on our phones or just mulling over things and not getting out of bed? If you're awake, get out of bed. Just get up, get out of bed, get ready for the day. Try and get those good sleep habits in place. With all the slides we've just shown you, set yourself a little bedtime routine. Put it on your phone, your iPads, write it, do whatever you want with it. But try and follow through with it. Set reminders on your phone. It should be quiet and peaceful. No electronics. Listening to music might help. Yoga might help. But try doing those things. Nothing too hectic. Definitely not a gym class as well. Again, people think I'll exercise and I'll be shattered. No, not right before bedtime. You need to do that again. I think it's 2 or 3 hours before, and then your body will calm down. What does exercise do? It boosts our adrenaline. Those endorphins are flying all over the place. So we actually need to bring ourselves down. Next slide. So we've got some information here on further support, as we mentioned at the start. And just coming back to be kind to yourselves. Don't expect too much, especially if habits have been formed for years and years, or even a year, even through COVID. Have you had any big changes in your life? You know, COVID's been a hard time. Have you had any losses? Has there been a separation? Has the consistency of who's in your household changed? All of those things are going to impact our sleep. Just be kind to yourselves, be realistic, and ask for help if you need it. We're here as the Centre for ADHD and Autism, but there is also the Sleep Charity and the Sleep Council, and those are the websites. Thank you so much for listening to us today, and we hope you've managed to take something out of this session and hopefully be able to use it in your life. Best of luck.